normal interaction between the populations would permit both countries to capitalize on mutual interests and resolve differences. For all these reasons, the U.S. strongly supports the normalization of relations between Turkey and Armenia. We believe that normalization should take place without preconditions and within a reasonable time frame. And we urge both countries to proceed according to the agreed time frame and framework, and roadmap. Normalization will promote peace, security, and stability in the whole region and is, in the words of President Obama, a goal worth working towards. In the security context, there is another goal worth working towards: a peaceful, just, and lasting settlement of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. During the past year, the parties have moved ever closer to a framework agreement based on a set of basic principles developed through intensive negotiations. The Minsk Group co-chairs, and probably most of you know, the US is one of the co-chairs, remain fully committed to helping Armenia and Azerbaijan finalize these basic principles, which are based on the principles of self-determination, territorial integrity, and non-use of force. Securing an agreement would enhance Armenia's security and also the security of the people living in Nagorno-Karabakh. It would open borders, establish transportation routes, and kickstart commerce with Azerbaijan. Over the last year, President Sarkisyan and President Aliyev have met 5 times. At their most recent meeting in St. Petersburg earlier this month, both presidents asked the mediators to continue their shuttle diplomacy and agreed to continue their own meetings. And as probably some of you know, just I think over the weekend, foreign ministers met in Paris. There is momentum in these discussions, and we look forward to more progress soon on this difficult but essential issue. Before I conclude, I'd also like to raise one other very important issue with you. I know there is disappointment, frustration, anger in the Armenian American community about this year's April 24th Remembrance Day statement. I've heard this in almost every meeting that I've had with the Armenian American community over the last 2 weeks. Many of you have related your frustration and your pain directly to people here in Washington. And you can count on me to share this with policymakers while I'm here in my series of meetings. While I know the statement was a severe disappointment, President Obama went further in the statement this year than any statements since Remembrance Day statements have been issued. His personal views on this issue are well known, and he made reference to those views both in his statement and during his recent trip to Turkey. Successive American presidents have long acknowledged the killings and forced exile of 1.5 million Armenians at the hands of the Ottoman authorities. Every April 24th, my embassy colleagues and I personally honor those victims at the memorial. And when Assistant Secretary of State Phil Gordon was in Yerevan recently, he too visited the memorial and the museum and paid his respects. This history forms part of the personal stories of more than half of the population of Armenia that is descended from those expelled from Anatolia and elsewhere. I have spoken with many of them, I've spoken with many of you, and I have been deeply moved by what you have told me. The resilience of the Armenians in the face of this terrible past has touched and inspired me. It has made me more convinced than ever that we need to work together to ensure that Armenia is secure and that Armenians have the opportunity to build a country that will prosper and will flourish. While we will never and must never forget the past, we must also work towards a better future. And Armenia is building that better future. I'm sure many of you have been traveling back and forth to Armenia over the years, and over the last 2 decades, there has been dramatic development in all spheres. And much has been accomplished, but as I've said before, there's still quite a lot that remains to be done. I think we're fortunate to be present at this moment of historic opportunity, and I'm optimistic about the future and see the possibility of resolution of regional disputes and the further development of Armenia's political and economic institutions. Possible, however, does not mean inevitable. It will take hard work and political courage to transform Armenia and the region. The U.S. is committed to advancing the relations between our two countries, facilitating rapprochement among neighbors in the region, and helping Armenia achieve its political and economic potential. The U.S.-Armenia relationship is a strong one, and it is a high priority for the U.S. government. When Assistant Secretary Gordon came to Armenia, he had been on the job all of 2 weeks, and Armenia was the first country he visited traveling on his own. He told reporters that although he is responsible for 50-some countries and 3 international organizations, that he had spent more time on the security issues of the Caucasus than on any other single issue. I think that makes clear the commitment not only of Dr. Gordon, but of the United States to support the realization of democracy and prosperity, peace and security in Armenia and in the region as a whole. I thank you again. I thank the Library of Congress for having the opportunity to speak here today, and I welcome your questions.
Let me pour you some water.
Thank you very much.
Would you like me to take the questions?
Yeah, no, that would be good. Sorry, let me get that out of your way.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Jovanovic. Jumping Jack. For what I consider not only an interesting and vital speech, but one that takes a very forthright approach to many of the questions that are of concern to the United States and to Armenia. Now, before we start the questions, we are now okay. Before we start the questions, I have to read the typical bureaucratic message. Okay, so please note that this event is being videotaped for subsequent broadcast on the library's website and other media. The audience is encouraged to offer comments and raise questions during the formal question and answer period, but please be advised that your voice and image may be recorded and later broadcast as part of the event, and probably will end up either on Flickr or Google. By participating in the question and answer period, you are consenting to the library's possible reproduction and transmission of your remarks. Now, I know that Ambassador Jovanovic very much wants to mingle with you for a period of time before she goes off to a meeting, so we will restrict this to a Q&A of 20 minutes. But I have a personal request. This is our chance to hear from Ambassador Jovanovic, who has willingly agreed to answer your questions. As time is short, please limit your personal comments. As a matter of fact, I will probably exercise my right by limiting your question to a minute. And I ask that you respect our guest and members of the audience by allowing them time to share their concerns. Now, this is going to be a challenge. And I assure you, I have no preconceived conditions on how to pick them, but I noticed that this lady was the first to raise her hand, so would you please stand, identify yourself, speak loudly, and I will repeat the question.
My name is Norma Gutierrez. I am not an Armenian, I am a Hispanic. My question is, in order to achieve a real reconciliation with Turkey, will the government of President Obama pressure Turkey to accept its responsibility on the genocide of the Armenians? I have read that the U.S. archives are full of evidence of Turkey's responsibility on that genocide.
To repeat the question, in normalizing relations between Armenia and Turkey, will the United States press Turkey to recognize the genocide in light of possible government documents proving the fact of its existence?
Thank you for the question. The president has stated that he believes that the best way to move forward on this issue is for the Armenian and Turkish peoples to address the facts of the past as a part of their efforts to move forward, and that his goal is to ensure a full and frank and just acknowledgement of the facts.
I'm going to go quadrant by quadrant, so I'll get
sorry,
back to you, okay? Anyone on this side? Okay. Ambassador Evans.
Hi.
It was good to hear you mention the roadmap